Hi, I'm Patrick O'Hare, president of the Friends of Ludington State Park. The Friends was formed in 1992 as a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide and support programming and projects at the Ludington State Park. Thank you for taking the time to watch our Zoom recording of Jim Galley's 2022 State of the State Park. We hope you will take the time to explore the Friends website and consider becoming a member. You can also find information on the website regarding past, current, and planned projects, future events, volunteer and donation opportunities, prior news, or to register to receive our e-newsletters. On behalf of the Friends Group, we hope you enjoyed Jim's presentation, and now I will turn it over to him.
Thank you for the introduction, and welcome everyone for this year's State of the State Park review. And this is an opportunity for me to let you know what has happened over the past year and what we have coming up for the upcoming season. I'm going to
Jim, do you want to start your camera so they can also see you?
I'd prefer not to, and that's not because I'm afraid of being on the screen, but our bandwidth is pretty limited here at the state park, and I would like to avoid any stuttering or any delays with the image. So
that's fine.
At the end of it, I can hop on once this part of the program is done.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So I'm going to start off with an overview of the state park, and for many of the people on this call, this is probably a rehash of information that you know very well. But in case there are any individuals who have come to this program and aren't quite as familiar with Ludington State Park as some of our friends, then I do want to cover this area. So Ludington State Park is about 5,400 acres along the Lake Michigan shoreline. It's sandwiched in between Lake Michigan and Hamlin Lake, which is 5,000 acres, and it's primarily a forest and sand dune type environment. It's on the tip of Big Sobble Point, which is one of the two prominent points on Lake Michigan in the Lower Peninsula. It's an area that is often used as a landmark for the shipping industry, which has gone back from the 1800s even through today. Shipping lines, you'll often see that they come through within about 4 miles of the point itself. The park, we don't just administer Ludington State Park itself. We also administer the 4 access sites that are located at Hackert Lake and Plinus Lake, St. Mary's Lake, and the US 31 Twin Bridges area. So you might not know, if you're using any of those facilities and you find something amiss, something that needs to be repaired, you have some comments about that, you'll also want to come to, contact us at Ludington State Park for that. Like I said, Lake Michigan is probably the biggest draw to Ludington State Park. We've got 7 miles of Lake Michigan shoreline. Starts at the southern end of what's locally known as First Curve, and then continues north for those 7 miles and butts up against the Nordhaus Dunes Wilderness area. The Big Sobble Point Lighthouse is pretty close to the midpoint at about 4 miles up the shoreline. Hamlin Lake is on our east side, and Hamlin Lake has approximately 5 miles of shoreline. The environment's quite a bit there. It's forested. A lot of wetlands, buffer the main part of the park from the water itself. And Hamlin Lake is maintained by the Hamlin Dam. The level of Hamlin Lake is maintained by that. And that's something that we have a deed restriction that requires that we maintain it at a certain level. And then during the winter months, when the ice forms on the lake, we're required by this deed to lower the lake level approximately 2 feet. So it is an artificially, it's an artificially maintained lake. And that dam was actually built by Charles Mears when he built the Hamlin Lumber Village back in the mid 1800s. And so prior to that, it was probably, there were still some wider areas of the lake, but a lot of the lake that we see today would have been wetlands or may have been above the level. Hamlin's really popular for swimming as well. And then cutting down the middle of the river is the Big Sobble River. Goes from Hamlin Lake, runs about a mile out to the Lake Michigan shoreline. It's a popular area for recreation. I think we are hearing someone talking. You need to please use your mute. And popular area for recreation and for fishing as well. So some of the main attractions at Ludington State Park that draw people here, the scenic sand dunes. This is a park that protects thousands of acres of sand dunes, and the resources that exist within those dunes. This is it's called a jack pine barren type dune environment, the lakeshore dune and swale environment. So you've got row after row of sand dunes that are somewhat parallel to the shoreline of Lake Michigan. And in between, in those lower areas, you tend to have a lot of jack pines growing in those spots, along with oak and white pine and some other species. But they call those areas with the jack pines, jack pine barrens, and they're separated by those dune ridges. It's a phenomenal area to explore if you get a chance and you want to get off of the main trails. You can find yourself, separated from people, and can almost lose yourself, even in summer months. And this park is a park that brings nearly 1 million visitors in per year. So it's pretty amazing that you can get away that much in this environment. And the main draw, I think, here for most of our visitors are the beaches and the shorelines of both Lake Michigan and Hamlin Lake. With 7 miles of phenomenal beach, you can get away from people if you'd like, or if you want to hang out in a more developed environment, you can do that as well. Big Sauble Point Lighthouse is one of our cultural resources in the park. This is another very big draw. I think in a typical year, Big Sauble Point Lighthouse sees around 16,000 to 18,000 visitors that'll climb to the top of the tower and get to look out over, the state park and Lake Michigan. It's a wonderful place to do ship watching and watch storms come in as well. So it's a beautiful spot. It is a 2-mile hike each direction to get out there. You can either walk along the Lake Michigan shoreline, or you can walk along the Lighthouse Road out there. That road is not open to the public just because it goes through the dunes. It receives a lot of sand, and it's not really developed for heavy vehicle traffic. So we limit that to just, official use only, and for the lighthouse keepers who stay out there. And then the Hamlin Dam is over on the east side of the park, and we kind of look at this as maybe our waterfall. We don't have the rock like Tequamanon Falls or the Porcupine Mountains do, but we've got this beautiful dam at the mouth of the Hamlin Lake kind of exit before it goes into the last mile of the Big Sauble River. Like I said, this was a dam that was built in the mid-1860s, and this is probably the 3rd or 4th iteration of the dam. In the 1880s, I think the dam washed out, and then again in 1912, and I've seen some sources say there are a few other instances in the past. The 1912 washout was pretty significant. It was the loss of that dam that wiped out the lumber village of Hamlin. After that, that coupled with the fact that the lumber industry was kind of slowing down a bit, resulted in the village of Hamlin not being rebuilt. It's a popular location as well for salmon fishing, especially during the fall fishing runs. And if you walk around in the areas just below the dam and on the north side of the river, you'll find a lot of the old remnants of the original dam and some of the historic artifacts from the village of Hamlin. The trail system here is pretty extensive. We've got at least 25 miles of designated official trails that are mapped and have confidence markers to help guide you. There are also a number of social trails and old logging roads that exist that you can still follow. One of those that's fairly popular is what we kind of call around here the Lake Stride Trail. It's what the Lake Stride Half Marathon uses for a portion of their race through the woods. Some of the trails are paved, so any of the paved trails are, you're allowed to operate bicycles on those. During the winter months, we actually, when we have enough snow, try to groom a lot of the trails as well. We've got about 7 miles of groomed cross-country trails.
Also, let me in soon.
Well, what do people do when they want to come to Ludington State Park? Hiking is probably one of the popular things in addition to, spending time on the beaches. Like I said, we've got the 25 miles of hiking trails. You can also get off trail and explore if you'd like. Boating and paddling has become very popular and has really picked up over the past couple of years during the COVID pandemic. We've seen a lot of people out in canoes and kayaks. Hamlin Lake is great if the weather's a little bit breezy. out of the west. A lot of times the areas close to shore on Hamlin Lake are nice and calm. But don't hesitate to check out Lake Michigan as well if you're an experienced paddler. Some of the calm mornings along Lake Superior or Lake Michigan, I'm sorry, can lead to some really special paddling experiences. We're not just all of your camping type recreation. We are a park that is open to hunting, and out of the 5,400 acres, I'd say that probably 2/3 of the park or more are open to hunting. The areas that are closed to hunting are the areas that are immediately around the campgrounds and the primary visitor areas. Anywhere along the Big Sauble River, that's closed to hunting just because of the number of people who use that area. But if you are ever out here at the park and you're using the park during one of the hunting seasons, make sure you're wearing hunter orange and be prepared, and understand that you may come across someone with a rifle on their way out to deer hunt, or a bow on their way to deer hunt. So fishing is popular as well. There's steelhead fishing during the spring. We get some runs here, and then again in the fall, and the salmon fishing in the fall is very popular, though the numbers have kind of dropped off from the past. Back during the snagging days in the pre-1992, there were huge runs that would come up into the river. Those have slowed down a little bit. The Chinook salmon population has gotten to the point now where we're not planting Chinook anymore to return to the river. We're now planting coho, and in lesser numbers, trying to kind of stabilize the population and avoid a die-off like what had occurred in Lake Huron about 10 years ago. Hamlin Lake is also a good spot for fishing. There's a great walleye lake. Bluegills are popular there. I know a few people who are pretty passionate about muskie fishing, and they hit it pretty hard in the winter months as well. So, those are a couple of really popular activities here at the park. And then while people are staying here, and our visitors from town have the opportunity to come in and see some of our special programs. A lot of these are funded by the Friends of Ludington State Park through donations and through their returnable bottle and can project that Patrick had mentioned in the introduction. Many of these are musical guests, some local and some traveling from outside of the area. But we also do educational programs. I highly recommend the reptile and snake program if you can make it, or the birds of prey, which is off on the left side of the screen here. A wonderful program, gets you up close with a lot of the raptors that are in the Michigan woods and along the shorelines. And then winter months, we're not closed. We're one of about a dozen parks that remain open year round for camping. And we do draw campers in, not to the numbers that we see during the summer months, but it is a fairly popular activity, and it seems like it's increasing over the past few years. Snowshoeing is very popular. Alan Wernett does guided snowshoe hikes. He's our park interpreter. He does those hikes every Saturday afternoon and every other Saturday evening during January and February. And I think he carries on into March if the weather conditions allow for it. And then we alternate those evening guided snowshoe hikes with Alan with a lantern lit program. Those are self-guided hikes, and they're along the bike path starting at the warming shelter. And that's funded through, those lanterns are funded through the Friends of Ludington State Park. Alan Wernett is usually at a fire to answer any questions you might have about the park, about its wildlife, and about the winter conditions. A couple of fires, one at the warming shelter and one at our amphitheater. And it's a wonderful time to get out into the woods and out into nature during a time when it can be a little bit tough to get out there. This year we had a wonderful winter for this program, so for all of our snowshoeing programs, and we're kind of hoping that that'll continue. It's been, prior to that, it was a couple of tough winters with not enough snow to hold these activities. So, Ludington State Park leads the state park system of Michigan in camping numbers. We are by far the most popular camping park in the state, and you can kind of see why when you look at the different activities that we have and the different experiences we have to offer. There's a lot to do in this park, even during a short time period staying here, or if you stay here for 2 weeks, I don't think you could fill all the buckets of activities you'd like to do. We do provide camping opportunities for our visitors with 3 modern campgrounds. We've got 64 campsites split between these three. The Pines Campground, which is closer to Lake Michigan, has 100 campsites. You're a couple of 100 yards from the Lake Michigan shoreline. The Cedar Campground is roughly halfway between Hamlin Lake and Lake Michigan. Tends to be a little bit more open, a little sunnier. Bigger campsites make it a great place for larger RVs and trailers. And then the Beechwood Campground, which is close to Hamlin Lake, and actually for at least part of the campground is actually on Hamlin Lake. That's a great place, a good mix of campsites. Some of the larger campsites in the park are located there, but also some of the smaller ones. Well-forested area, beautiful, beautiful campground. And then for people who are a little bit more adventurous, we have the Jack Pine hike-in campsites. Those are located in kind of a Jack Pine Barren, north of the park headquarters, the park entrance booth, about a mile along the Lighthouse Road. It's a little bit more rustic. Vault toilets are there and a hand pump. And if you want a little bit more in the way of amenities, we do offer 3 mini cabins, one in each of our campgrounds. Those are open year round and can be reserved a year in advance. They contain electric heat, bunk beds, table, chairs, microwave, and refrigerator. So I've rented those a couple of times in the winter, and it's a great way to get to the park and experience the winter months. And all of this, is kind of brought to you by our park staff. I can't thank them enough for all that they do here at the park. Really want to acknowledge the hard work that they provide here. We are a park with 5 full-time employees, and that would be me as a park manager, Dan Adams as park supervisor, and then Teresa Christensen as our accounting assistant, and then 2 full-time rangers, Kevin Swigert and our lead ranger, Paul Klein. And then in addition to that staff, we have 7 seasonal rangers and 21 summer staff that usually work mid-May through mid-October to allow us to manage the park and help keep it operating, keeping it clean and safe. So this 2021 season at Ludington State Park was definitely different. We were still in the midst of the COVID pandemic, and I guess some would say we still might be. But things had changed and loosened up a little bit from the 2020 season when we actually shut the parks down for a significant part of the spring to camping until we knew we could open things up safely. People started coming out into the park more and more during 2020. We saw a big spike in recreation. And in 2021, we saw an even bigger spike. So it seems like those COVID activities, the pandemic activities, maybe, were held on to by a lot of our visitors. And so our visitors came to the parks and recreated. Of course, that means that we see a lot of the same problems that we've seen in the past. Vandalism and such kind of spiked a bit last year, but it was nice to see so many people out there. So last year we had about 950,000 visitors, which is a record for us, and we had 56,500 camps. That's a big jump over the previous year, but it's hard to compare those numbers from year to year, especially with 2020, just because of the COVID closures. Weather continued to be an issue. High water levels continued to be an issue for us. Lake Michigan is only a couple of years removed from near record highs, and that really impacts the park. When Lake Michigan rises, the groundwater levels rise, and some of our campgrounds are very close to Lake Michigan. And when that groundwater rises, we don't have a lot of room for any of the rainfall to dissipate down through the soils. So flooding was a constant issue for us. It has been over the past couple of years, and we're hoping, as we've seen the lake levels decline a little bit, that we're going to see a reduction in that. High waves with the high water combined with the high water level started, Lake Michigan started encroaching along the shorelines, and in a number of situations or locations we've lost signage. The road commission has had to apply stone to kind of stabilize some of those shorelines to make sure that the dunes aren't eaten away as it approaches M116, which is the main highway into the park. We had a lot of storms last year and a lot of damage to the facilities from those storms. This particular storm was probably one of the scarier storms can only think of one maybe scarier in my life as a park ranger. You can see that a tree fell on a tent in the lower right-hand corner. The father had gone out and grabbed the kids out of there because he heard the roots snapping in that tree as the wind knocked it over, and he was able to get the kids out. And just 30 seconds later, that tree came down on the tent. That's something that this was a perfectly healthy tree, and it was in good soil. It had a good root system, but the straight line winds that came through were serious enough to be able to knock that over. Fortunately, no one was injured. And our crew jumped right on it and started cleaning up the downed trees from a lot of these incidents right away. The Skyline Trail had a few trees come down on it as well throughout the season. Fortunately, our staff was able to quickly get on those boardwalk and clean up the trees, and we were able to rebuild those sections of the Skyline Trail. One of the good things about this past year's the last year's weather is the fact that we finally did have enough snow to get out and groom our cross-country ski trails. And with the addition of the tracked tires, I guess you could call them, or wheels on this Gator, we were able to groom the trails faster than we have ever been able to. And I think the conditions of the trails looked a lot better than they have in the past when we tried to do it with snowmobiles. This groomer that's being dragged behind the John Deere Gator is a donation from the Friends of Ludington State Park. And I want to say maybe in 2012 or 2013 that was donated. And unfortunately, with the weather conditions being what they are, we haven't been able to use it as much as we'd like. But it was a great cross-country skiing year out at Ludington State Park. Like I said, we're getting back a little bit more towards the normal, working on projects around the park. On the left-hand side, got our seasonal ranger, Brandon Edel, working on a roofing project on Hamlin. Strong winds caused us to lose some shingles, so he's working on that. Matt Farber, one of our rangers, seasonal rangers as well, doing the day-to-day chore of cleaning the vault toilets, but always with a smile on his face. We've got a lot of younger rangers, newer rangers here at the park, and so we take the opportunities that we have to work with them on training, working on safe operation of boats, rescues, CPR and first aid. Here's an instance where they're actually pulling the kayak launch out, but this is something now that all of our staff are trained on the operation of the boat. With the amount of sand that we have here along the shoreline, sand movement is a constant project. So we're often in heavier equipment moving sand along the lighthouse roads and along parking lots. This last year, in addition to a lot of the just main operation of the park, repairs and cleaning of the park, we did have a few larger projects. A couple, I think it was the previous winter, we remodeled the changing courts at the Hamlin Beach House. This last year, we bat-proofed it, which is something that we had always had trouble with. A lot of the building was using tongue and groove, and bats were able to get in through some of the cracks, and so we were able to bat-proof that, and we just weren't happy with the look of the building itself, so we're starting to do some aesthetic repairs to the building, spruce it up a little bit. If you have used the women's side of the Hamlin Beach House, you'll know that we've had some problems with tile in there, and that's another project that we're working on right now. This is a photo that our lead ranger Paul sent to us at the end of the day today, when he had just finished chasing down all of the water damage that's under there. So we're looking at repairing this. The beach house has had some rot issues that we're working on as well. And then just off to the right, you'll see our 3 maintenance rangers working on electrical system repairs. That's something that we commonly have to do. The electrical system is pretty old in some cases, and we really rely on our maintenance staff to keep that up and running. And then we actually had some funding to work on some projects to help make the operations and maintenance side have a safer environment for them to work. We have this dust collection system that was installed over the winter. It's made a huge difference out in our wood shop. They're able to get the dust out of the air. It's better for their health. That makes it easier for varnishing and painting. Has really improved the environment there. We had some donations come in this year, and one of those was from a gentleman who had spent much of his life spending time fishing along the Lake Michigan shoreline, and in his memory, some life-saving equipment was donated. It can be used in the event that an angler needs it, or if any of the swimmers or tubers need it. We acquired a new beach groomer this last year as well. Prior to this, we had been sharing a beach groomer with multiple different parks, and that meant that whoever had it around the holidays was probably going to hold on to it and not let it migrate to some of the other parks, so we could clean up around the forest. So we were able to get this from Silver Lake State Park. It used to actually be owned by the city of Ludington, was one that they had used along their shoreline. So we're really excited to get this into operation, keep those shorelines clean around the beach house and the dog beach. So like I said, we have a lot of younger staff, and one of our most recent hires as a ranger is Brock Botenbrode. He worked here a couple of years ago. He spent some time at Grand Haven as a summer ranger and worked here a couple of years as a summer ranger for us. We hired him as a ranger, and he just recently went through the Law Academy and graduated a couple of weeks ago. So we're really happy to have our newest officer on staff. Brock's a phenomenal guy, great guy to talk to, really positive energy and great customer service. We're really glad to have him on our team as well. But that wasn't the only celebration we had. Got some experienced staff here, and a couple of us met some significant milestones. Paul Klein got to it first. The old saw turned 50 in February, and I got mine in July with 50 years on July 1st. So it was fun to have some cake and ice cream with the staff and have a little fun. So over the next few slides, I'm going to talk about some of the major projects that we have had going on. And a lot of this is going to be a rehash of what we had talked about last year with upcoming projects, and it's just status updates on those. Capital outlay projects are some of our more significant projects that tend to have be pretty expensive, pretty labor intensive, pretty technical. And so I'll run through those and give you status updates on those. As you know, last year I talked about the fact that we were going to replace both of the what we call back Beechwood or the north Beechwood campground toilet shower building and front Beechwood or the south campground toilet shower building. And we actually did hire a contractor for that. These were the buildings before they were demolished. Right around Christmas time or just after Christmas, the buildings were demolished. The contractor got a late start for a number of different reasons. So actually right now we're running a little bit behind on these projects. We're hoping that they will be completed in time, but supply chain issues, the ability to get contractors has been very difficult, or subcontractors, I should say, has been very difficult for this contractor. And we've been running into some issues. Regardless of that, we do plan on having camping in Beechwood starting June 24th, which is when we had planned on opening it. It just may look a little bit different. If these buildings are not completed by that time, we may be looking at bringing in portable toilet and shower buildings to accommodate our visitors. So it's a little bit of a stay tuned thing. We have posted on our webpage that May 2nd is the day that we're going to give the next update. So if you want to check out our webpage, we'll have an update on there on May 2nd. So here's a few more pictures of this. You can see the new exterior block that's been installed. The roof is on. We're waiting for a couple of timbers to finish up the roof. Today, this is actually taken today. The masons are on site, keeping the mortar temperatures up warm enough for that to cure properly. They needed to put a tent over there and get the heaters going, but they are working, and they're working. I think last night they were here till 7:30 p.m. trying to get this stuff done in time for their substantial completion date. With the difficulties with the supply chain of acquiring a lot of our electrical components, we decided that we would put the electrical system upgrade on hold until the fall. Our worst case scenario that we could see was that the contractor came in, pulled up all of the electrical pedestals and the wiring, and then couldn't acquire the components to replace it. So pretty early in the project, we told them to hold off on the electrical system until the fall, make sure that they get all of their ducks in a row, their supplies on site, their subcontractors hired and ready. And I think starting October 11th, they are hoping to be on site and to get the electrical system replaced before the harsher weather appears. It's a little disappointing. We hate to, this is something we've been trying to get done for the past few years. And we hate to have our visitors go another year with this system being as old as it is and outdated as it is, sharing pedestals. But we felt that this was the better route to go. If they had pulled that stuff up and didn't have the components in place, there would be no camping in Beechwood this season. We have hired a landscape architect and engineering firm to help us with the parking expansion and the traffic and pedestrian flow project that we talked about last year at this State of the State Park. And we've had a couple of meetings on site, identifying some of the concerns that we have, some of the safety issues we see, some of the pinch points and problem areas. We've had a few proposals shared with us, and so now we are reviewing those, seeing where problems might still be in place, and seeing which designs we like the best. So we're trying to kind of balance safety along with the ease of access for our visitors to enter the park, as well as to move throughout the park. And those are all the components, but we're working in a pretty limited space. The Ludington State Park entrance area is, has a bridge that you need to cross. It's owned by the state of Michigan, not the Parks and Rec Division. You've got wetlands on the east side and the west side. You've got the river. You've got sand dunes around there, and all of those, have environmental protections in place for very good reasons, but they do make it a little bit more difficult for us to kind of modify this entrance area, keep the beautiful aesthetic of it, but also allow people to move through there. So hopefully we'll have something coming up pretty soon on the designs, and then we'll be looking at doing some of this work in possibly 2023 or 2024. We've been working with another engineering firm on the Skyline Trail. The Skyline Trail was put in 1980, has had a few instances where there have been upgrades to it, kind of in site or on site. And now what we're planning on doing is replacing it. Doesn't meet current code restrictions. It's aging. We're constantly up there making repairs to it. And so we're hoping to move forward with replacing that. It's a pretty big project and a very expensive project. Fortunately, it appears like we might be getting some funds from the American Recovery Act that'll help us fund this. And again, that's probably going to be another 2024 type project. This fall, we'll be moving ahead with repairs to the lighthouse seawall. For many years, it wasn't much of an issue, but when the lake levels rose over the past couple of years, we had a lot of concerns with the impact of the wave energy on the seawall itself. We lost most of the seawall cap to waves and ice. And, any day that had significant waves, we had a lot of erosion on the back side of the seawall, the lighthouse side of it. We want to make sure that, we stabilize that area. So this fall, we're going to be doing some work on that seawall, putting the cap back on, adding a lot of riprap on the lakeward side, and on the shore side, adding some riprap as well to help stabilize that seawall, make sure that doesn't start tipping or become undercut. And we're hoping to start that, probably get the equipment out there in late September, just because the amount of stones that are going to be brought in are, it's so great. And each of those stones is going to weigh 2 to 5 tons. We're hoping to get a barge that'll come in from the lakeside and deposit the stones there. So it could be a pretty interesting project to watch if you're in the area. So that's kind of a summation of some of the projects, the big projects we have. And right now I want to talk, we couldn't do a lot of these projects and a lot of the work that we have here at the park without our partners. We work with the Big Sauble Points Lighthouse Keepers Association, or Sauble Points Lighthouse Keepers Association. They actually maintain lighthouses at Big and Little Sauble Point, White Lake, and the City of Ludington's North Pier. We also work with the Hamlin Lake Preservation Society on erosion control projects. We rely on volunteers like our campground hosts to assist us with the day-to-day customer service at our park. We work with the Michigan Rehabilitative Services to provide opportunities for work for individuals that might have disabilities. They assist us with, trail cleanup, trail maintenance, just about anything that we ask. The beach cleanup, it's a great opportunity. Usually work 4 hours per day, 4 days a week. We work with the U.S. Forest Service. They've allowed us to use their tree spade for planting trees. And we work with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the University of Minnesota and the Piping Plover program. And that's just a few of them. But, really one of the biggest partner, or the biggest partner we have, and, the reason why we're here today doing this program is the Friends of Ludington State Park. Here they are this year at the 2022 Ludington Brewfest. This is one of their big fundraisers. They partner with the Chamber of Commerce to staff a lot of the different brewing stations, ticket booth, and maintenance setup beforehand. And for that, they're the sole beneficiary of the profits in this event. It takes place in downtown Ludington each year. This year it was held at the Plaza for the first time, and we think it was a success. We weren't sure what to expect after COVID, but this year we had probably the second largest number of visitors for the event that we've seen since it started. So you might know the Friends Group for a lot of their activities that they do. The Highway M116 litter pickups happen a couple of times per year, I think 3 times per year. They do the 2 miles of the highway closest to the state park entrance. A lot of invasive species cleanup, a lot of our tree planting efforts. Park staff will provide the trees in some cases. Then the volunteers from the Friends Group will come out and help with the planting. In other cases, it's the Friends Groups themselves that are providing the trees and helping with the planting as well. Fundraising for large projects, that's something that I think one of the biggest successes they've had is the installation of the accessible playground down at Hamlin Lake. That has become a popular spot year-round. Almost every day they go down there in the winter months, and kids are out there playing on that playground, and that's something that came from Ludington State Park. We also assist with special events. We had a couple of those this year: adventure races, adventure swim races. They also do the guest presenter series, fund that through the bottles and cans and donations, which brings in, like I said, artists from around the Midwest, and also some of our local favorites like Chloe Kimes, and in the past Billy Strings, who just won a Grammy last year. So you have some phenomenal musicians that come out, and we encourage people from town and visitors while they're here to make it to either the amphitheater or down to the Lake Michigan Beach House for programs. And then also the Friends Group funds the purchase of the lanterns for our Lantern Lake skiing guided hike, and they also provide the volunteers to get that thing up and running. It's a lot of work to get the number of lanterns lit. It's green and it's cold, and it's often things don't want to work after that. So we really want to thank our volunteers on those cold winter nights keeping the lanterns up and allowing us to have so many visitors come out and enjoy the winter. I said the Friends Group this last year, they provided more funding for trees. We planted a number of tamaracks last year. We're hoping to get more tamaracks in here this year as well. With the increase in the water levels, we found out that a lot of our spruce trees and pine trees that are close to the river don't handle that so well. So we're looking at the tamaracks, which can handle a wetter environment. As Patrick had mentioned earlier, that they purchased the Seacoast and Chroma viewer, and that's been placed up on the Skyline Trail. So you get an excellent view of the ridge along Hamlin Lake. We're hoping that during the fall color season, that's going to be a real draw, for anyone, but also for individuals who do have color blindness. This will allow them to see, the colors in true color. We've received a bike repair station as well that was funded by the Friends Group. That has not been installed yet, but we do plan on installing one out in front of the park headquarters. We're really looking forward to that. It's amazing how many times per summer that visitors come to the park headquarters and ask for a wrench or a screwdriver, or to pump up their tires. So now we've got this in place, and we're looking to see if maybe there are other locations where we can put another station up. The Friends Group partnered with Ludington State Park and the Mason County Sheriff's Office to purchase and now install our swim condition sign that's located at the entrance to the Lake Michigan parking area. This was a project that came from the Mason County Sheriff's Office, who during the month of November, they have a No Shave November campaign. They're fined every day that they do not shave, and all of that money is donated towards a cause in the area. Fortunately, they chose us one year, and we were able to get this installed last year. It's very visible. As you're walking to the beach, it's right out there letting you know what the conditions are like. And we hope that our visitors will heed the caution that they see when that warns them from getting in the lake. And then the big project from last year was the accessible kayak launch. These have become quite popular throughout the state, and we felt that this would be a great addition to Ludington State Park, not only because Hamlin Lake is such a great, and Lost Lake are such great lakes for paddling. We've got a concessionaire that has kayaks and canoes, but we also have one canoe trail that heads to the south end of the park, and we're actually going to be putting in a new canoe trail this year that'll go up towards the north through Lost Lake. Felt this would be a great addition to the park. The work on this project started last winter when park staff worked on installing the retaining wall. We worked with Kelder Construction to put the concrete slab that the walk would actually connect to out to the kayak launch. Our friends came out and assisted with the installation of the actual launch itself, hauling some of the floats out there, hauling the ramp out there, and getting things prepared for the opening, which occurred this September. Bob Sasson was the first one to try it out. He was our former Friends Group president. He's holding the sign that shows the instructions of this. And this kayak launch is designed to allow people who not only have mobility issues, but also people who don't, to access the water safely in their kayak. It works extremely well for kayaks. I'll admit canoes, or at least bigger canoes, it's a little bit tougher to move along in, but it does provide nice dry entrance and exit from the lake. And then we had a little bit of extra funding from the Friends Group and donations, and so we're able to install a couple of kayak racks and canoe racks down near that launch. So here's a list of all the visitors who have, and friends and volunteers and donors who have contributed to this project. We had our opening ceremony in September, and I thank everyone who has donated to this project. We've been looking to get this in place for quite a few years now, and we appreciate the help, not only with financial help, but also the labor that it took to get this in. So Patrick mentioned our latest, the latest fundraising effort that the Friends Group had done in their latest donation to the park, and that is an accessible track chair. They call them action track chairs. There's been a few of them coming into different state parks, and Patrick had brought the idea to us to get one here at Ludington State Park for a couple of reasons. One is it provides access, for anyone, who has a mobility issue, to get out on the trails and out on the beach, but also because, one of the larger draws to the park itself is the road out to the lighthouse, the hike out to the lighthouse. And that's a 2-mile hike, and it can be too difficult with the, the shifting sand, the soft ground. And this, we thought, would be something that would really make it easier for people to access that lighthouse. This was just dropped off a few weeks ago, beginning, I think, April 8th. It showed up, and we were trained on how to operate it by Brian, who sells the track chairs and also uses them. He uses them for hunting, recreation. It's a pretty special piece of equipment. There are a couple of local residents who either use them or have family members who use these chairs, and it's really opened up access to the outdoors. So like Patrick had said, we're hoping to get this in operation by the end of May and allow it to be reservable for people who need to use this. We're kind of working through some of the process right now, just learning, how long can one operate this chair before it needs to be recharged? How far can someone go with it? What trails are actually accessible, and what trails can we get access to in case this breaks down and we need to get someone out of there? So we've got a little bit of work on our end before we make it open to the public, but look forward to that this year. And I believe we're trying to fund an additional chair for next year. So I'm getting kind of close to the end of the program. I did just want to comment on a couple of stewardship type issues and, some of the impacts that we've seen over the past years with the lake levels have really negatively impacted the park experience, erosion along the shoreline. I had never seen this wall in front of the Lake Michigan Beach House since I had been going to to Ludington State Park, which I think was probably the mid 80s. So that was really exposed. Flooding in our campgrounds was a constant issue. And a lot of that was tied to the lake levels, like I mentioned earlier. But I just pulled this graph just before this presentation, and you can see how much the lake levels have dropped over the past couple of years. When we hit our peak in the summer of 2020, we were pretty close to 582.35 feet, and we've dropped down to 579 feet in, I guess, a little less than 2 years. And so we've noticed a lot of the areas that have been wet and swampy in the park are drying up. A lot of our interdunal ponds are drying up a little bit. And so that's, going to change the experience a bit walking out in the dunes, in some cases for the better, probably in a lot of cases for the better. Our beaches are much larger than they have been over the past few years. The interdunal wetlands are drying up a bit, which is providing better habitat for the piping plover, which is our endangered shorebird. For years, we've had piping plovers nesting in certain areas, but unfortunately with the lake levels coming up, those areas flooded and the birds have moved on to other locations to nest. So we're hoping we'll get some piping plovers back soon. And then, the campsites, I hope we're not going to see as much flooding as we have in the past. It was, I know, challenging for our visitors, challenging even for the staff to try to address some of those flooding issues. And then last year I had talked about the hemlock woolly adelgid, which is one of the latest invasive species into this area. Started in Allegan County when it was brought into the state on nursery stock and has moved its way north along the shoreline. Combination of through human activity as well as migration of birds and the activities of animals that move through these hemlock trees. It was discovered in Ludington a couple of years ago, and we've got a crew from AmeriCorps who is out quite regularly monitoring the trees, looking for the spread of this species and treating the trees of hemlock trees that have outbreaks of hemlock woolly adelgid. It's expanded a fair amount in the past year. It's in other locations in Mason County and has moved north through the park. Just something to be aware of. If you're around hemlocks, it's probably best to avoid, parking your camper up underneath one, rubbing up against it. We've tried hard to trim all of our hemlock trees so that they're tall enough that your campers won't hit them. But it's just something to be aware of because it can be spread through, human activity in addition to the animal activity. And hemlocks are, I know they're my favorite tree, one of the favorite trees of a lot of people I know. They, really provide a lot of great habitat in the state of Michigan. And well, that's all I have. It's been a pretty good year despite the pandemic. And we're looking forward to the upcoming year and some of the projects, and looking forward to having visitors back this summer. So thank you very much, and I guess we'll see if we have any questions.
I neglected one, Jim, when we started this session, and I was talking about track chair, and you touched on it as well, to also recognize the folks that are on tonight, which were made a key donation for the track chair back in December that allowed the Friends group to finish fundraising for the first chair and to place the order in December, which allowed us to take receipt of it in April. And so again, I want to shout out to the Fawkes for their donation to the Friends group. And one of the, just another shout out that I thought of as you were presenting and talking in terms of collaboration is that the Friends group will be collaborating in August with the Ludington Area Center for the Arts on an art exhibit that is focused on art from the Ludington State Park. And so that will be taking place during August at the Ludington Area Center for the Arts. And those that have art, photographers, painters, whatever it might be, that want to submit, you can find information about that on the Ludington Area Center for the Arts website. Jim, there is a question. I don't know if you see the chat. Somebody missed the first half of the meeting and wondered if there was a Beechwood campground update. Do you want to just provide a brief synopsis?
Yeah, you know, we've had some construction delays, combination of the contractor having difficulty in getting subcontractors. It's a pretty robust time right now to be doing construction. And I don't know if anyone's tried to get an electrician or a roofer, you know, there's a long lead time to that. So they've had some difficulties getting subcontractors, and also been some long lead times on some of the materials that they've needed. The supply chain issues have made it difficult to acquire certain components. And so that said, they're behind. They're hoping to get the work done on time. We have made some contingency plans in the event that they are unable to. And, you know, we're not going to cancel reservations. You know, our plan is to provide camping in Beechwood starting on June 24th, which is when we planned on opening. It may be a little different. We might have to bring in portable restrooms while they wrap up the projects, but we do plan on having camping.
What other questions are there? And I also want to shout out to Jim touched on, you know, key contributor within the state park to the environment in terms of things to do and so forth is SPLCA. And when we talk about the track chair, I keep going back to that because I keep thinking in terms of other elements just to impress upon everyone how significant this is, I believe, going to be for the park. The SPLCA, I reached out to Peter Manning back in December and asked him as to their experience in terms of the need for the chair. And as Jim said, in terms of people going out to the lighthouse, we probably all of us have walked that road at one time or the other. And he told me that last summer, there were a couple of different families that made it out to the lighthouse, but they had to leave a family member in a wheelchair halfway because they couldn't push the chair any further. And so SPLCA, as a nonprofit, actually made a donation to the Friends group towards the purchase of the second chair because they believe it is going to be so beneficial to visitors to the state park and to the Big Sava Lighthouse to be able to get out on the road and enjoy it for individuals that are not here or can't, you know, take advantage of bus days. So a shout out to SPLCA as well. There are comments in terms of thanking you for the presentation. Are there any other questions? If you can ask them in chat, or you can unmute and ask your, you know, identify yourself and ask your question as well. There is one, Jim, that just came in. Will there be lifeguards this summer?
No, there will not. Michigan State Parks hasn't had lifeguards, I think, since the early 80s, and you know, they're not making any movement in that direction. We are looking at some changes, however, to our beach safety programs. I'm actually on our statewide water safety committee that evaluates different rescue equipment, signage, messaging, you know, things like that we're doing. So there should be some new signage that's going to be going in place. We're hoping that it'll be this year, but we're looking at some different signage for closing the beach during dangerous conditions. And I think we're going to be doing some surveying of our visitors as well, just trying to understand, you know, how knowledgeable our visitors are of, you know, our flag system and what things we can do to make notification a little bit better. But no, no plan on putting lifeguards in Michigan State Parks.
Steve Banash is wondering, Jim, when the kayak launch is going to be reinstalled.
We'll be doing that in May. We just need to wait until Hamlin Lake is backed up to its summer levels. Right now, I want to say we're about 4 or 5 inches shy of that. With some of these heavy rains that have been coming, we've been able to capture water rather quickly. It was a late year for us to start raising the lake with the cold temperatures lasting as long as they did, but this May.
Any other questions?
Not a question, but just a quick thank you to Jim. This is Sam in Pentwater, Jim.
Hey Sam, how you doing?
Yeah, doing great. Hey, I just want to say thank you to you and your staff again and again and again, especially now for many years, beginning in June, the runners, the Lake Stride, that's on June 11th this year, and the half marathon. And it's just fantastic. Out of all the runs that I do, and this is for runners, this is absolutely just one of the best because of what you do, allowing us to go through the state park, the Ludington Lake Stride. So just people just love it. And again, thank you so much for all that you do.
All right, thanks, Sam. Yeah, that's a great event. Running through that stretch, and it's probably 1.5 miles or so through the park, and coming over that dune is something else. It's so fun to watch people, and just the look on their faces as they come out of the woods there. Neat event. I do have a question asking about is it possible to obtain up-to-date info on cross-country ski trail conditions throughout the winter? I'm a horrible Facebook user, and I'm not good at it, and I'm hoping to improve that by handing it off to someone else. So this upcoming season, I'm going to try to bring a couple of our rangers in. Dan helps. Dan Adams, park supervisor, he's much better at it than I am, but we can try to incorporate that into our Facebook page, and never hesitate to call us. We're often in the office, or we'll have someone in the office Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, and we're happy to give you updates on the conditions as well.
We are also during the year are looking to organize hikes, organized hikes. And when I say organized hikes, they're not going to be always in terms of highly organized, but kind of like a hiking group. And Alan Burnett is going to do some overviews of the park in more detail for some individuals, if we can get enough identified that would be willing to lead hikes. So if you're a hiker and you're routinely out there and you'd be interested in helping to lead a hike, please email the Friends of the Ludington State Park at gmail.com, and we'll get your name and keep you informed as that progresses. Alan's very enthusiastic in terms of working with some board members to try to put that together. So that's something else that you will hopefully be hearing about in the coming months. And I know there are a couple comments in chat about, again, reminding people that on Thursday evening this week at 5 p.m., if you're out and want to help us at the Ludington State Park, pick up litter along M116, please join us. Jim, thank you very much for your continued leadership in terms of managing the Ludington State Park. Thank you for your collaboration with the Friends of the Ludington State Park, and thank you for presenting the 2022 State of the Ludington State Park. Hopefully this will become an annual occurrence, since I guess we can start saying annual since this was the second one. But again, thank you very much. And everyone, please have a great evening and enjoy the Ludington State Park. And if you have any questions about the Friends group, do not hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.